Okay, hello everybody. So as you just heard, like one of the features we introduced was prototyping, so I thought I'd be bold and instead of having a presentation in Keynote, I try it as a prototype. So it is hooked up to the clicker, but it is a prototype. And it is a beta version and everything like that, so bear with me. One of the consequences of that is also that I have no slide notes here. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so a few months ago when we were thinking about speaking at Layers, I knew that we wanted to demo some of the new features we had been working on. Didn't know which features yet, but for sure there would be something to do demo at the end, and there will be. I'm going to show off 2 new things that we've been working on. But I didn't want this to be just a marketing speech and a sales pitch of Sketch. So when I started working on the presentation to go with that, my working title was Designing for the Designers, but it's basically going to focus on like 2 major questions that keep me up at night. First is what is the product that you want to build, and what is the kind of company that you want to build around it. And those 2 questions are very much interrelated. And especially in our case, the question is, okay, what is the kind of company that you want to build? Is a slightly original one in the fact that we are a completely remote company. Like I'm from the Netherlands, co-founders from Portugal, and well, we're basically everywhere in Europe. And also that we didn't get any VC funding when we get started. Everything was bootstrapped. And so how that came to be, I want to quickly tell the introductory story. And it starts in 2011 when I had been what you call an indie Mac developer for a couple of years, making a number of nondescript Mac apps. But I was very much inspired by like the wave that was a few years before that of what some would call the delicious generation. So there was all these beautifully crafted Mac apps. The delicious library was, I guess, the first one that got the trend started, but there were like, oh my God, CSS Edit, Kaleidoscope, App Zapper, Disco, those kind of apps that were beautifully visual. And I was really inspired into making something like that. Problem was, like, I can't design anything. I mean, visual design is just not my thing. I think yeah, so I needed help with that. And so I worked with like half a dozen designers over those years. And there was a pretty consistent theme in that they were all using Photoshop, but they were all only using like a very small part of it, and they were all complaining about how the application was not made for them, and with every passing update, like either it would get worse or they would get no love at all. So I started thinking like, well, I already have one of those apps that I built was like a fairly simple drawing app. Like, what if we take that and we build that into something? So one of those designers I had been working with over the years, eventually we started working together. It's like, well, can we turn this little app that I made into something that you can use for all your design work? And if you can use it, then hopefully there will be others as well. Well, that turned out to be the case. So we launched Sketch the year after in 2012, but we didn't. Well, we had no idea that the market would be so big. Like, we each knew like a handful of designers, and you think, well, there must be more. We can probably build a product out of this. But we thought the market was like way too small to even think about funding. Like, we could never get a VC interested in this. Like, if you're opening a lemonade stand, you don't think about getting VC funding. And there was the same case as with us. It's also the reason we were remote. Like, if we had from day one thought like, well, we're really going to build a company about this product, and we want to take over the entire market, and it's all going to be great and awesome. Maybe we would have decided like to open to move together and open an office or something, but we didn't. I was in the Netherlands, Emmanuel was in Portugal, and that's just how we got started. Very clearly on the way, it became clear that after the launch, if I ever wanted to write another line of code, we needed help with support. And we started getting like a ton of requests for things like PDF importing, which is not something that the operating system gives you for free. It's really something that you have to build out by hand. I knew that this was going to be months and months of spec reading, and like a lot of work to get the first things going. I just didn't have time for that. So we found a developer in Scotland who was willing to take that on, and from then on we were officially a remote company. As the company started growing, it became very clear immediately on that I am not a manager. I'm a developer and a product designer, but I am not a manager at all. I don't like to look people over the shoulder and follow up with how things are going all the time, which is also a very hard thing to do in a remote company, especially looking over the shoulder. So it was from the start like a fairly loosely organized bunch of people because, well, remote. And that plays in with all kinds of things like how you organize the company and the kind of product that you ship. Like in the case of, well, let's take the example of Apple, like they have a new iPhone shipping every fall. And there's an entire hardware and operations thing going on behind the scene. But it's really important that they get that iPhone out every fall. So they can't be a loosely organized bunch of people, otherwise things would fall down dramatically. In our case, that is the kind of company that we are, and so that's the model that we chose for ourselves. So, like some companies, they take a long time to craft like a new version of an application. In our case, we figured we should get small, frequent updates out, and that just works better with the kind of model that we have. The kind of product that you want to make, like, is, as I'm trying to explain here, is very much impacted by the kind of company that you are, how you got started. In our case, of course, we got started by solving a problem that we had for ourselves. And you're building a tool, which is like which I think is a very interesting market to be in. It's like if you have like a ride-sharing app, I don't think you'll be very surprised by what your users are doing with the app, right? They're using it to book a ride. In the case of Sketch, and especially because of the open plugin ecosystem we have, like there is this very wide range of users that people use your product for, things that you could have never imagined at the start. And I find that immensely satisfying. I find it very interesting. Is definitely one of the coolest things about working on Sketch, is to see what other people are doing with your tools, doing things that you could never imagine. And as I said, especially because of the plugins, because here is Sketch in Chinese, which is remarkable because we have not localized the app in Chinese. Someone wrote a plugin that does that. How they did that, I don't want to know. It's like, here is dark mode in Sketch. We don't have a dark mode yet, but someone wrote it. So yeah, if you really want to have your dark mode today, this is the place to go. Similarly, this is a like the timeline-based animation tool that someone wrote a plugin for inside Sketch. Again, how they did it, I don't know, but I think it's awesome. This is the kind of files that people make, like you build Sketch as a user interface tool, and then someone comes up with this. And this is all like shapes and shadows and borders and fills and blurs, and it's weird. There is this one. I don't know who has seen this. This is like a me emoji before Apple did it. So you saw it first here in Sketch. And so this is, so a few months ago we released our libraries feature. And libraries are a way to package up your symbols in a separate file so that like other people on your team can you use them. For those who are here who are not Sketch users, very quickly, a symbol is a way you can reuse like standard elements in your UI. Like the simple example is like a button or a navigation bar. You want those to look the same across your design, so you turn them into a symbol. And those symbols, they live in like they are like the one source of truth within your file, but a library is a way to distribute that among files in your teams, those kind of things. But yeah, as I said, we thought symbols would be used for like reusable UI components. Someone thought, well, I can make a library that contains symbols for like a build your own avatar thing. I just want to very quickly show you how that works. There's my slides here. So here we have the this symbol containing a lot of nested symbols. Like for example, you can get different hairstyle. See? Sorry, the screen's a bit smaller than I was thinking it would be. So we have like different mouse, different clothes. It's like we have that one at the moment. We will go for a different shirt. There were glasses somewhere that I wanted to accessory here. There we are. Then just like, is this useful? Well, it's fun, and it's. Like the day after this got released, everybody in the Slack room like made their own avatar, and that stuck for a few weeks. But it's just to illustrate again like the weird things that people do with the application that you could have never dreamt of yourself. And this is very fascinating, I think. But as I was saying earlier, like we have symbols and libraries and now prototyping as well. Like at what point is your application still simple? Because those concepts, especially symbols and libraries, they're not things that that people would immediately understand when they start using the application for the first time. It's like this first version of Sketch was simple enough because it just didn't do that many things. But after a while, you risk losing that. And so with every new feature, you're constantly asking yourself, okay, what is the product that we really want to make? And in the beginning, those questions are easier to answer because, well, especially for us, as I explained, right, we were turning my simple drawing app into something that he could use for his work. So he was the user. So whenever the question was like, what are we doing with Sketch? We ask our designer. But after, as Apple likes to say, 1,000 no's for every yes. We can all quibble about which yeses and which no's. Like, I wish they hadn't said no to the new Mac Mini, but at a certain point, your users, they outgrow you, literally. Like at the point where we were maybe a 10-person company, Sketch started to get used in companies with hundreds or thousands of people, and there were dozens or hundreds of designers working together. And this is just not a use case that you have yourself when you get started. We had 2 designers. We don't know how it is to work in a company with hundreds of designers because we never did. And you can't just blindly implement features that users are asking for because you end up with a kind of Photoshop-like product that you wanted to move away in the first place. So this is a very tricky balance of simplicity and appealing to pro users while you still want new users to get started easily. I think we've all seen like variations of this curve, like or in the horizontal axis you have the number of features, and on the vertical axis you have user happiness. So the first version of Sketch probably was well into the bottom left quadrant somewhere It was nice, but it didn't do much yet. But it was simple to get started with. And as you add features over time, people will think, well, finally they added like that big missing features. Like finally they added prototyping, whereas other people might be like, prototyping in Sketch, why? And so, but at a certain point you reach that happy user peak, and as you start adding more advanced features, like people with simpler needs, they will start to think, well, where did they hide this feature? Why did they move that? Whereas the manual, isn't there something simpler out there? And well, where is Sketch on this curve? Well, that's the $1 million question to which there is no answer, because this peak is different for everyone. Like the example I gave with prototyping, some people might say, oh, finally, prototyping, whereas others are, well, does it really belong in Sketch? And of course, we hear a lot from the people who are not yet on their happy peak. They want like more features added, but while you would do that, you will have other people fall off on the other end. So, do you design for yourself or others? Well, in our case, we're definitely designing for like use cases that we've never, that we won't have internally. We're now a company of like 38 people. It's like, yeah, we don't work in a 1,000-person company. But you still have to keep yourself as the user in mind, I think, because as I said earlier, you don't want to just build features that you don't feel belong in the product. It's ultimately a question of following your gut, which is the hardest thing to do, and there is no magic formula, but it's always like, does this feel right in Sketch? And sometimes the answer is no, but in a few times, sometimes the answer is yes, and 2 of those yes questions I want to show to you now. How we're doing with time, good. So, one of the things that I want to talk about is Boolean operations, and which started as more of a general question about like vector editing. And again, that case where you have people asking, like, we need better vector editing tools, but that means like splitting our one simple pen tool up into multiple ones, like for a select and an insert and a bend, but then you lose that simplicity that you have at the moment. We came down in the end to thinking like, I think the real problem is that we need to improve our Boolean operations. Again, an example of not exactly listening to what the customer is asking for, but trying to go a few steps further and asking, okay, why exactly? What is the problem that you're having exactly? And so, yeah, we have improved the Boolean operation. I just want to show you to you now. I had an empty slide here. There we are. So, for those non-designers here, or designers think, what, Boolean operation, what is that? That is basically a way to perform like, to combine multiple shapes into one. So like, very simple case, 2 shapes here, I do a union, and now I have 1 shape. And the nice thing about Sketch here is that these Boolean operations are non-destructive, so I can take one of these and still move them around, resize this. So, there are other operations like that, so there is a subtract operation. So then you go left click, then you get a sort of donut type shape. And we felt that this was like a reasonably, we were really happy when we shipped this in the first version of Sketch. We felt it was really important that these Boolean operations were non-destructive and that you could always get to them. But we made the model such that, well, there was a shape, and that the shape could have a number of paths. And in this case, well, there are 2 paths, like one big circle, 1 small circle, and it punches a hole in it. And you can make like really advanced shapes with this, but at a certain point, the model started to break down, because if I duplicate this one and I would union this, I would get this thing that I've hidden here. Ta-da! You would get this. And that is not what you would expect, because we've lost that arm here, the rightmost inner arm. Why is that? Well, we wrote the application a bit too simple. Like I said, a shape containing a number of paths. And there's just no way you can make, this No, what am I doing? Sorry, confused. What did I do? Oh, I added it as a subpath. Here. There's no way you can make a shape like this. You want to look like this with like a single list of paths. And I can show that quite easily. So here is our shape, and this is the path that it is built out of. So you start with the big circle from the first shape, and you subtract the other circle from it. Oh, here's the first donut, then you have the two paths from the shape that you unioned with it. So there's a union, and then there is a subtraction. So this is a simple enough model, but you end up with the wrong shape. And so, of course, that's a huge problem, because the user expects one and gets the other. And this is where we got the balance of simplicity wrong, I think. And now we have like properly nested Boolean operations, which look a little bit more complex when you expand it in the layer list, because I have like a tree of operations now. But the nice thing is you just get the right shape that you expect, instead of ending up with a shape that we saw earlier and then thinking, wait, what just happened? But then we started looking into this a little bit further. So how can we architect this inside Sketch? So instead of having a shape with a number of paths, basically it should be able to contain any kind of layer. That would be nice. Can we do that? Of course, the answer is yes now. Yeah, that was really predictable, I know. So this is text, for example, and I can subtract a shape from that. And see. In the case of text, is that very often useful? Maybe not, but now it's possible. And the nice thing about building tools, like, well, your users will always surprise you with use cases that you didn't think of initially. Does it work with symbols? Well, it does. And for that, I'm going to quickly make another icon. So just for the non-designers here in the room, I hear that there are some. People might wonder, how do you make like these complex icons? Do you just draw them by hand? No, this is how you do that. So we're going to make a simple Wi-Fi icon. I just need to count my rings. And there we are. Okay, well, anyway. So I take the two outermost circles and subtract them from each other. But this is not actually needed, so. And I take two more circles and then subtract them from each other. And now we have like this target practice thing. I can union them all together. Now it's one layer again, and now we just need like the top quadrant of that shape. So I'm going to make that, position that here, and I'm doing an intersection. And here we have our Wi-Fi icon. So, but, haha. Live demos with the beta version on stage, I do apologize. Of course, a real Wi-Fi icon has like one extra ring, but you get the idea. Yeah, so this is like a reasonably complex operation that you can see here on the left here in the layer list. But the steps of making the shapes were simple enough, and like much more complicated paths are now possible in Sketch without surprises. But I was talking about symbols, so I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to turn this into a symbol, call it Wi-Fi. And like so, the symbol here lives in another place in the document, but that means that I can make multiple copies of this one. I can make another one really big. And if I now go to the symbol, I can edit it here. Finally! So yeah, as you can see, I can change the master and all the instances update live. What I can do now, I can also combine it with Boolean operations. So I need to go back and turn on the fill here. And I just going to select, let's say I want to have like the inverted version of this icon. So I'm just going to have a circle with this Wi-Fi icon, and I'm going to punch a hole in it by subtracting it. And so now we have a symbol inside one of these new operations. And I can combine these as much as I want, so I can take two of these and union them together. Is that useful? No, but this is a demo, so it's fine. And now if I go here and, for example, I want to hide the inner ring. The inner ring is this one. You can hide it and see it disappears everywhere. Thank you. So what I was saying earlier, we felt from the start it was really important that these Boolean operations be non-destructive. So in this case, you can edit the symbol and your shapes will all update as well. So that was that. Next one. So yeah, I think this is going to open up a lot of new possibilities of what you can do with symbols. One thing I forgot to demo, just realized, you will also be able to use symbols and like text layers and any other kind of layer as a mask for other layers. Like, yes, thank you. So there's the second feature that I want to show is about designing with data. I must have accidentally moved one of my artboards. Anyway, the designing with data is the next feature that I want to demo, and this is about just using realistic data in your designs. And we think that this is something really important that we should just have in Sketch, and that means that you should be able to just fetch. That you, for example, need a list of contacts, and you say, well, I need some names. I don't really care what these names are, but give me some names, or give me some user avatars, for example. I think there are like at least like 3 important use cases for this. The first one being like just a simple matter of convenience, as I said earlier. Like I just need a bunch of names, I need a bunch of avatars, or whatever the case is in the product that you are working on. Second one is arguably more important, and is just, I think we think Sketch should help you with when you design that there's a proper, that the Sketch can help you counter those biases that you might have when you just need to come up with a bunch of names, for example, off the top of your head. So if I'm designing a contacts app and I need like a list of names, okay. Well, we have, I don't know, we have Jim and Jane, and we have Tim, and Craig, and Eddie, and Phil, but these are all very short names, so that's a bit of a problem. They're all English names as well, which is also a bit of a problem. So there's the risk that I design my UI for the optimal use case, or like a very limited use case, but when I release it to the rest of the world, that suddenly you will find that things don't work. And this goes also for like races, for like cases of race or gender. Like Sketch should make it easy to get like a fully representative set of data in your designs. Third one is that I think it's really important to design with like real data and not idealized use cases. The example that comes to mind is Facebook Home, which we had a few years ago, which was this Android home screen skin that Facebook tried to launch. But because it looked beautiful, like these big photos that took over the entire device, but they were all like professional, they were almost all made by professional photographers, and like of people always having a good time, having parties on the beach, beautiful sunsets, those kind of things. But if you feed like really realistic data into there, what people really post on Facebook, the application would look a lot less appealing. So you shouldn't be designing for the ideal use case, but like real pictures that people post on Facebook. If you work for Airbnb, like real pictures of people take of rooms, not just like the penthouse that looks good in your design. So I want to demo that as well. Yeah. For this, I can just, I have another document ready. And so, what we've added here in the top left, you can see a new data icon. And it's like really simple. So I need an image here. So I go to data, and I want the face here. And it just picks a face from a random collection of things. The layer remembers where the data is fed from. So there's a shortcut, and I could just cycle through like a bunch of faces, for example, that I've told Sketch about. You can do the same thing with text. So here's like a text layer, and I want a name in here. And so you can cycle through like just a bunch of random names. Well, how does this work? Well, very simple. We have a new tab here in the preferences for data. And so in this early version, we've added like two built-in sets, like faces and names. But you can drag like a folder of images in there that are like a good source for the stuff that you are working on. You can drag a text file in there with just a list of text things that you want to do. Like for example, here I have a list of cities. That is just like there was a Wikipedia page for like the top 200 biggest cities in the world, and I put it in a text file. And now it's available in Sketch. And most of the cities I've never heard of, but that's the nice thing. So, some of them, it's like, I didn't know that they existed, but the nice thing is that I can now get Sketch to get me really realistic data. So in this case, like here we have, let's just make a very simple design. So we need a face here, I need a name here. This can be a city. So cities, well, Ethan is not a woman. I so now I have multiple layers selected here, and I can just, multiple layers selected as a beta. Bear with me. I can refresh this normally. I can't. Let me try another one. Let's just select them. And no, what's going on there? Refresh data. Yeah. See, so I can more easily refresh. Thank you. I can turn this stuff into a symbol, and that way as well I can just duplicate my symbol a number of times, and please. Yeah, see? So. Thank you. And so the last thing that I can't show here, because it's not working 100% right yet, is you can also write a plugin that ties into this system. So these all just come from like folders or text files, but you can also write a plugin that shows up as a data provider in this list. So like one of the use cases that I already mentioned, if you work at Airbnb, maybe there's an internal API for you, just get me a random image. Just get me a random image from a room somewhere, and that can show up in that list as well. So that is that. And I'm out of time, so I'm quickly going to head back to the slides. Oh, this is the wrong document. And with that, we've basically, yeah, so that was Designing for Designers. I was thinking there might be time for a Q&A, but I've just run out of time. So I want to thank you all for your attention. And if you have any questions afterwards, like please come talk to me. I would love to hear what you think about these new features. Thank you.